If you are parenting a PDA autistic or high needs child and somewhere along the way you stopped feeling like yourself, I want you to stay with me today. So, I'm not talking about the version of you that's exhausted or stressed or reactive or just getting through. Today, I'm talking about the version that has lost its aliveness and joy for life. The you that used to laugh and actually feel it, who felt lightness, who felt ease, not relief that a hard moment ended, but genuine ease, like life could hold you for a moment instead of you always holding it. Maybe that version of you that feels like a distant memory. Maybe you get time for yourself now and you don't even know what to do with it. You sit down and instead of resting, you just feel blank or worried. Maybe your child has a genuinely good day and instead of joy, you feel worried that this won't last or you feel strangely far away from it, like the moment is happening somewhere but you can't quite reach it. Maybe you've noticed that you can still feel the hard things like fear, anxiety, frustration, the low hum of dread, but the good things, they don't land the same way anymore. Joy feels thin. Ease feels like it belongs to someone else's life. If any of this sounds familiar, I want you to say something. I want to say something to you clearly. Nothing is permanently wrong with you. Okay. This is not who you've become. It's what happens when a nervous system has been living in survival mode for a very long time. So today I want to help you understand why your joy, your aliveness, your ease, the parts of you that are most truly you get covered over, and most importantly, whether you can find your way back to them. Not when life gets easier and not when your child is doing better, but now. So let me start with the moment I realized I had completely lost myself. So a few years ago, the most intense period of my son's burnout, he had a good day, right? There was a good day that came, okay? And it wasn't this like miraculous turnaround, and it wasn't a sign that things were finally changing. It just he had a genuinely good day, the kind that used to feel normal and now felt like something borrowed or fleeting. Okay, so he was smiling, he was laughing, and his face looked lighter in a way that I hadn't seen in a long time. And I'd almost forgotten that it was possible for his face to look this way. Okay, and I remember standing there watching him and then feeling this desperate, almost physical longing rise up inside me. I wanted so badly to feel what he was feeling. Okay. And after everything that we had been through, the years of daily meltdowns, the house being destroyed, the throwing, the hitting, the swearing, the basic needs that had become battlegrounds for him, school stopping, our world shrinking, becoming housebound, after all of that, I wanted this. I needed this. I needed to let this moment in and actually feel it and feel joy. But I couldn't. I felt nothing. Not relief, not joy, not even the beginnings of gratitude, just flatness, just this strange hollow void where feeling was supposed to be. Okay, and the thing that confused me most, the thing that actually even frightened me, was that I wanted to feel it. I was desperately reaching for it. I wanted joy. I wanted the aliveness, but still nothing came. And I remember thinking, what's wrong with me? My child is smiling. He's having a good day. This is the moment I have been hoping for. Why can I not feel it? Like, why can't I take this in? So at the time, I made the only meaning I could make of it, right? That I must be far gone. I must be too exhausted, too depleted, too damaged by everything we'd been through. Something in me had broken. And now even the good things couldn't reach. Okay. I felt broken. So it took me a long time to understand that this wasn't what had happened. Okay. My nervous system did not break. It had done exactly what it was designed to do. It had learned over the years of chronic stress and unpredictability to stay in survival mode, okay, braced for the next crisis, scanning for threat. And in doing so, it narrowed my access to the very experiences that make life worth living. Okay, so I thought I lost joy, but I hadn't lost joy. I had just lost access to the joy. Okay. And that distinction, when I finally understood it, it changed everything. Okay. So here's what I think that most people don't talk about when they talk about parenting a child with intense needs. Okay. This is not talked about that much. Okay. We often talk about the exhaustion, yes, the isolation, right? That we feel like we're all alone, that we don't belong. And then this grief, of the life that we imagined, the impact on our relationships and our careers and our sense of what's possible. Okay. The worries and fears we have. But there's this loss, okay, this quieter, more invisible loss that I see in almost every parent I work with and was there in myself, that we feel like we lose ourselves, right? The old us is gone. I feel like I'm gone, right? But it doesn't happen suddenly, right? It doesn't just announce itself. It happens gradually, okay? Almost like imperceptibly, the part of us that felt alive, right? That the aliveness just started to go dark, right? Slowly over time, that eventually like it just wasn't there anymore, right? And then the things we used to love, like the hobbies, the things we were interested in, being spontaneous even, right? Or not being able to fit into the spaces that we used to fit into. Okay. We tell ourselves that we'll get back to things, we'll get back to that maybe one day when things settle down with our child or children, right? But things don't necessarily settle down, right? And then slowly we stop even reaching for those things that used to make us feel more alive and feel more joy. Okay. And then something more subtle happens, that even when we do get time and some space, right? Like maybe we get a rare afternoon off or even like a night away. Oh, how luxurious is that, right? Or even like an hour while our child is calm. And we find what happens, we find that we can't even use that time, right? Like we sit down to watch something, to watch TV maybe, and something funny, and we can't even take that in, right? We're kind of like a little bit numbed out doing it. Or we go for a walk and we spend the whole time mentally rehearsing future conversations, future crises and future decisions, like we're in our heads all the time, right? There's all this constant rumination and worrying going on, right? So we have that break, but we're not present for it. We're not there for it, right? We're off in our heads, we're numbed out, not truly feeling the benefits of those present moments that we can have to ourselves. And I hear this all the time from parents, okay? You finally get some time away, a night away, and you spend it checking your phone, making sure that everything's all right at home. Your child has a calm day and you can't take it in and you're already bracing for tomorrow. Okay. And then someone asks you what you do for fun and you realize, like with a start, right, that you genuinely don't know anymore. Like, I don't know what I do for fun. Oh my God. Like, I have no idea. No idea. Okay. So fun feels like something from another lifetime, right? Okay. I know you're feeling me here because I have heard so many parents say this. Okay. And then somewhere in all of this, we arrive at one of two conclusions. Either something is wrong with me or I've lost myself. I'm gone. Like, where am I? I don't even know who I am anymore. I'm this shell of a human being. Okay. But here's what I want you to understand. Okay. And this is the heart of everything I'm going to share with you today, that what's happening here is not actually losing ourselves, okay? Who we truly are with all of our aliveness, our zest for life, our capacity for gratitude and joy and fun, it's still there, okay? It's just covered over by a nervous system stuck in survival mode, okay? And once you understand that, then everything begins to look different. Okay, so when you can't feel your aliveness or your joy, okay, even when there are moments right in front of you that would have moved you before, right, or you would have felt before, It isn't because you're damaged, right? So I want to reiterate that. It's not because you're damaged. It's not because something is permanently wrong with you. It's because under chronic stress, the nervous system does two things. Okay, first, it develops this negativity bias, right? It learns to scan for threat and danger far more readily than it can take in the goodness of life. Okay, and we are programmed for this negativity bias. Everybody has it, but it becomes the dominant form and way of being when under chronic stress. Okay, then the second thing is that the nervous system numbs us down. Okay, because when you are living through the volume of pain that comes with this kind of parenting, okay, like the daily meltdowns, the aggression, the fear, the grief, the shame, then the nervous system eventually has to find a way to keep you functional, right? You can't be feeling all of this all the time. Otherwise, you would just be a mess and you couldn't get through life, right? So, what does the nervous system do? It numbs all of the feelings down, right? And it takes that dial of the feelings, right? So, imagine it as a dial and it turns the dial all the way down, okay? So that you are not really feeling anymore all of that pain. The problem is that when it numbs you from the painful emotions, it also numbs you from the nourishing ones too. Okay, so this is what I lived for years, right? My son would have a moment of genuine connection with me, a real moment, right? The kind I had been longing for. And I would go through the motions of responding as if I felt it, okay? But inside, I was still numb. I was still scanning, okay? Or a friend would say something kind and I'd say, thank you, but it wouldn't land in my body. Okay, or a therapist that we were working with for my son would finally understand what we were dealing with, right? So you would think I would feel seen and heard and validated, and I'd maybe feel it for 30 seconds before my nervous system moved right back to bracing. Okay, so for a while, I thought this was a problem with me specifically, that I wasn't grateful enough, present enough, mindful enough. Okay, what I came to understand is that this is what the nervous system does. So researchers call it negativity bias, as I mentioned before, right? It's the brain's tendency to weigh threats more heavily than positive experiences. Okay, and this happens to every parent that I see, okay, who parents a high needs child. Okay, under chronic stress, that bias becomes extreme, right? So then a moment of connection with your child, it lands for 30 seconds, maybe, but then a difficult exchange from like 3 days ago, oh, that's still alive. That stays with you. That takes up more of the space. Okay, so this isn't a character flaw. Nothing's wrong with you. It's a nervous system that has learned very efficiently to prioritize survival over what I'm calling nourishment, right? Taking in those moments, those glimmers that are nourishing, or the felt sense of the good things, taking in that so that it can nourish you, right? So, and the cost of that life starts to feel like something you're enduring rather than something you're living. Okay, there's something even harder beneath this though, okay? So when the hypervigilance, right, that anxious, braced, always scanning state, when it goes on long enough, okay, many parents eventually tip into the other survival state that's called shutdown or freeze. And that's where you become flat, emotionally absent, not distressed exactly, although that's underneath it. Okay, but you're just not really there, right? You're not feeling, you're going through the motions of life without fully inhabiting life. You're not feeling. Okay, and that's when even things that you desperately want to feel, right, that would help you in life, like joy and ease and love, even love, okay, even love can get quite covered up, right, in the way that you used to feel it with a fully open heart. Those start to become inaccessible, okay, but they're not gone. Okay, it's because your nervous system has covered them over completely in its effort to protect you. Okay, and here's what made it worse. Okay. I kept waiting for things to change on the outside, for my son to change before I allowed myself to feel better. Okay. So this is what I'm calling the trap of waiting. And many of us parents do this, right? We wait till the circumstances are better before we can feel these good feelings. Okay, so for years, I ran a quiet bargain in the back of my mind. Okay, I don't think I ever said it out loud, but it was running constantly like a background process I couldn't see. Once my son is better, I'll be okay. Once school and learning is figured out, I'll relax. Once the hard part is over, I'll feel like myself again. Okay, I see this in almost every parent I work with, and it makes complete sense. When you're managing daily crises, of course, you're looking towards some future point where things are easier. Of course, you're hoping for relief. Okay, but the problem is that this bargain quietly postpones your life and keeps your nervous system stuck in this holding pattern. Okay, you never get to replenish and nourish yourself, and you often end up burning out. Okay, and of course, it's not intentional. Okay, it's not because you're doing anything wrong, but because everything like your attention, your energy, your capacity for joy, it gets organized entirely around managing the next thing, right? The next appointment, the next accommodation, the next school meeting, the next hard morning. Okay. And before you know it, years have passed and you're still waiting, okay, for the circumstances outside of you to change so that you can feel your aliveness again and your ease again and your well being again. But here's the truth I had to sit with, okay? For many of us, parenting a PDA autistic or high needs child is not, it's not that the problem of our child eventually gets resolved, right? This is our child. They have their challenges. They're going to have these challenges, ups and downs in their challenges for life. And there may be progress and there may be seasons of real relief, but the nature of this parenting journey means that there will always be something that needs navigating. Okay, so if your access to joy or peace or feeling like yourself depends entirely on your circumstances becoming perfect first, then you may spend a very long time waiting for a day that never fully arrives. Okay, so for years, I lived as though my capacity for joy was contingent on my circumstances first cooperating, right? As though I had to get my son's well being secured, get the future settled, get the external chaos to quiet, and then finally I could feel okay. Okay, what I eventually learned is that it was never out there waiting for me in the circumstances outside of me. Okay, it was actually always here inside of me, covered over, yes, but here waiting for me to notice it. Okay. So now I don't say this to take away hope, right? I say it because it was the question that cracked something open for me. Okay. What if I don't have to wait for circumstances to be better, for me to feel my aliveness and feel like myself and feel my joy again? Right? And what if I can't afford to wait? If I really want to be a more regulated person and parent and want to feel better about my life, right? What if my child can still struggle and I can still reconnect with myself and feel who I truly am, feel my aliveness, my zest for life, my aliveness, my well being, my ease too? Right? So, what if both things can be true? That we can have the struggle and the circumstance outside of us, and yet we can still feel our trueness of our zest for life and our aliveness and our well being and our ease, right? We don't have to lose one because of the other. Okay, so this is a huge opening. Not many people feel this way because when you are in the survival system feels like this is the only true reality, right? Because story follows state. But that is just not the truth, okay? Waiting within us is this feeling, it's just covered over. Okay, so for For a long time, right, I assumed that what I had lost, the aliveness, the ease, the zest for life, the joy, was actually gone. And I see so many parents feeling this way. Okay. Even the groundedness, the sense of being able to handle life, the feeling of being at home inside myself. Okay. I assumed that these were casualties of everything we'd been through and things that existed in a former version of me that chronic stress had simply used up. Okay, but over time, through the work I began doing on my own nervous system, I started to understand something that shifted everything. Okay, those qualities were not gone. I just lost access to them. Okay, and that is a completely different problem. Because if something is gone, there's nothing you can do. You grieve it and you move on. But if something is covered over, okay, buried underneath layers of survival activation, fear, and grief, and years of the brain narrowing its attention to only threat, right? Then that something that is covered over, it can be rediscovered, okay, because it has been there all along and is not dependent on any circumstances outside of you. All you need to do is tune tune into it. It's been waiting for you to discover it again. Okay. And this is what I teach as the inner resource. Okay. It's called the inner resource. So I want to say this concept isn't mine. It's, I heard it, the inner resource. I heard it through Richard Miller, who developed meditation protocol called iRest. And he describes the inner resource as this unshakable ground of well-being that remains present even in the middle of trauma, grief, chronic stress, or pain. Okay, and his work has been particularly powerful for people with PTSD, and it's become foundational to how I understand, my true inner resource inside, and and what nervous system healing is really about, which I feel like is tuning into this inner resource that's there. Okay, and then for those of you who may do internal family systems therapy, it talks about something similar, right? It talks about that we have parts and we have a self with a capital S. And the self holds these qualities of calm, clear, compassionate, curious. And it's the part of us, the true self us that exists underneath our survival parts. Okay, it's not something we have to create, it's something we just reconnect with. It's always there, right? And when we unblend from the parts of us that are in survival mode, then we feel this true self energy come through. Okay. And then across contemplative traditions for centuries, there's been a version of the same understanding that beneath your thoughts, your fears, your emotions, and your reactive survival states, there is an awareness that hasn't been damaged by any of it. Okay, a deeper ground of well-being that simply gets obscured when survival becomes all-consuming. Okay, so here's what I want you to understand, okay, because this isn't abstract. You have already felt your inner resource. You have already felt it, okay? You just didn't have a name for it. So I'm inviting you to take in a name for it if you want. Inner resource. And I love that name because in my courses, I teach about learning to connect to your external resources outside of you as well as your inner resources, because you have things outside of you that help you, like nature, like other people who give you love, who you can co-regulate with, like something in your environment that you enjoy, that you take pleasure in, that you have appreciation for, and those things can nourish you, okay, when you feel them in your body. But you also have this inner resource, okay, and that you access when you actually connect to your external resources, and that inner resource is always there. Okay, so I'm going to give you some examples here. So you've felt it in the moment in nature, right? Where something in you suddenly softened. So like you're standing beside the ocean, or you're walking in a forest, or noticing sunlight come through the leaves and something shifts. right? You drop out of your head, out of the scanning and bracing, and you're just there and you're present. And for a moment, something that felt like, that feels like okayness, right? Like, I'm okay. That becomes available to you. Okay. Or another example, maybe you felt it holding your sleeping child, despite everything, despite the hard days and the fear about the future, you're feeling just for a moment completely present with them, right? A tenderness that cuts through the survival. Okay. Or you felt it in a rare morning alone with your coffee before anyone else was awake and feeling for a few minutes just like yourself. Okay. Not performing, not managing, not bracing, just here. Okay. And what those moments have in common is that your survival system became quieter. And in that quiet, something underneath became available. Okay. And that's what I mean by inner resource, right? So, what became available? This feeling of ease, this feeling of presence, this feeling of groundedness, this feeling of aliveness, this feeling of presence, this feeling of okayness. Okay, that's all part of your inner resource. It's not a spiritual concept that you have to adopt per se. Okay, it's an experience that you already have had, that your nervous system already knows how to access, that chronic stress has simply been drowning out. Okay, so think about the sun behind the clouds on an overcast day. The clouds are real, right? The storm is real, but the sun hasn't disappeared, it's still there. The conditions simply make it temporarily inaccessible. Okay, so your inner resource is exactly the same. It hasn't been destroyed by what you've been through, it's been covered up. And what I love about this is that it's not dependent on the circumstances outside of you going well. Okay, this innate aspect of you, who you truly are, is always there. It's always available. It's just waiting for you to tune into it. Okay, so one of the most helpful things that I discovered when I began this work is that you don't have to generate joy from scratch, right? But I also want to offer you something even more immediate than that, because for many parents, the body itself is the doorway. Okay, and it was for me, right? So for the first time I actually touched my inner resource, it wasn't through a memory or a beautiful moment in nature. Okay, it was through sensation in my body. Okay, so this is one of the access points, right? Being in the body, feeling sensations is your access point, and memory is another one. And I'll walk through that in a moment. Okay, so I had been so far into my head for so long, and this is all the parents I see, right? We're thinking, analyzing, planning, ruminating, worrying, bracing, that I had almost completely lost the felt sense of living in a body, right? So I was like a walking head cut off from the body. And one of my teachers guided me to do something deceptively simple. Okay, stop trying to think my way into well being and start sensing my way into well-being. So not searching for anything big. I feel like a lot of us feel like we're searching for this like big feeling of joy and this big feeling of finally life is easy and okay. No. Okay? We're not searching for anything big here. We're not trying to feel joyful or peaceful or okay. First, we can just notice what is actually happening inside my body right now. Okay. And of course, you will notice the sensations of survival being there. So notice those, right? So when you drop out of your thoughts and into sensation, okay, you're going to notice the sensations of the survival system there too, tension and, speeding up and whatever you may feel that survival system is. So notice those. But then as you drop more into and you kind of like allow yourself to open up and look, right? There's more that's there. Okay, so I noticed like, what else am I feeling here? And this is what surprised me. Okay. There was aliveness that was already there. So what I was feeling was this subtle tingling in my hands at first, right? Or this very faint pulsing or vibration, something that felt like energy moving quietly underneath all the noise, okay, and all the tension. So it wasn't dramatic, okay? It's not what I would have called joy or peace, okay? But it's what I called aliveness. Okay, so I love this word aliveness because I was missing it so much. I was so desperate for it. And then I felt this like tingly vibration in my body, and I realized, oh my goodness, that's aliveness. It's there. It's still there. And then the more I stayed with it without trying to change it or analyze it or make it mean something, the more it expanded. Okay, so what started as this faint tingling began to feel like warmth. And then that warmth began to feel like something I can only describe as ease. Okay, this being of a being at ease inside my own skin. And not because anything around me had changed, but because I had stopped fighting the moment that I was in. Okay. And underneath that ease, something even quieter. Okay. Then I started feeling this groundedness, a sense that even with everything that was uncertain in my life, even with all the hard things, that there was something in me that was okay. Okay. Not performing okayness, but just this true sense of feeling that in this present moment, I am okay. Okay, so this is what Richard Miller calls the unshakable ground of well being. And I could feel that, right? The reason that I love that phrase is that it captures something important. It isn't a feeling that comes and goes based on what's happening around you. It's more like this foundation, right? That foundation of you, something that was there before the hard years, that stayed there during them, and that I had simply lost the ability to sense. Okay. So if that doesn't give you hope, my friends, I hope that gives you hope. So as I kept practicing, right, returning to the sensation, noticing the aliveness in my body, staying with it instead of moving away from it, then other qualities began to surface. This feeling of ease, this feeling of equanimity and peace, right? A spaciousness around my thoughts that I hadn't felt in years. And then eventually, on some days, something that genuinely felt like joy. Okay, not forced joy though, and not trying to feel it, right? And not gratitude I was performing. It was this quiet, unmistakable sense of being glad to be here. Just the joy of being here and this okayness with everything as it is. Okay, so what I want you to know is that this inner resource, it does show up differently for everyone. I'm describing how it was for me. For you, it might not start with that tingling that makes you feel aliveness. Aliveness for you might be warmth. Maybe you'll sense it in your heart, okay, or a sense of weight dropping from your shoulders. Maybe you'll just sense it as a softening in your body and some ease coming in first, or a subtle brightening somewhere in your chest, right? Or simply a moment where your breath becomes a little easier. A breath is another doorway in as we focus on our breathing and breathing deep into the belly and feeling the ease of our breathing coming in. That could be a doorway in too. Okay, but the doorway for most of us that is the same is this. It's to stop thinking your way through it and start sensing your way through it. Okay, and then look for any quality of aliveness, however small, that's already there. Okay, and it could be aliveness for you. And if that's not there at all, you can go into other qualities, right? Look for other qualities, even just a bit of an ease or a bit of a relaxation response, right? To begin with, and then get to aliveness. Okay, however small, tap into it, be with it, sense it in the body. Okay. And if your body feels too shut down to sense much, right? Because that happens for many parents who are in deep into freeze or shut down and cannot feel much, then even dropping into sensation can feel like you're trying to tune into a signal that's barely coming through, right? Because the body feels so numb and flat, like there's nothing there to sense. So this may take some practice of being in the body. Okay. So if that's where you are, what you can do is try to visualize instead and borrow from a memory. Okay, so this is another doorway in. Okay, if you can't just drop into sensing it, what's already there, go into a memory first. Okay, because the brain, in many ways, it can't distinguish between a vivid memory of joy and then joy happening right in the here and now. Okay, so when you bring a memory into your body and not just think about it, okay, we want to bring it into our body and actually feel it, then your nervous system begins to register what that state feels like again. And it remembers, oh, yeah, okay, I've had that feeling before, so I know it, I can feel it again. Okay, so we just need to remind our nervous system. So we find a moment, even 2 minutes, and you just arrive. Okay, you arrive into the body. What I mean by arriving is you arrive into the body. You feel that you have a body here, and you're not just a walking head. So move out of thinking into sensing. Arrive in the body. You feel your feet on the floor. You know your eyes soft. You feel your eyes softening. One slow breath. You just land, right? And then you let a memory surface. Okay, something that once carried warmth or even joy for you, right? Maybe it was a vacation that you were on even before kids that you can recall, or a beautiful nature location. So you're not forcing anything, you're not searching hard. Maybe it's a moment in nature, like I said, or you're with your child at a younger age laughing, or a memory of connection with someone you love, or a place that always made you feel more like yourself. And if you can't reach any of those, it could be even another person or even a celebrity or somebody on a TV show, a character that embodies this. Okay, so you think of that memory, or think of this, and you light up the senses and you notice what you see and the textures you feel in this, and what you hear and what you smell and what you taste. And then you let the memory become embodied rather than just pictured. Okay, so you go from just like seeing it and thinking about it to sensing it in your body, and notice what it does in your body. Okay, notice, what does your body feel? So maybe you feel a small softening in your chest, your shoulders dropping. Maybe you start to feel this faint vibrating or pulsing or tingling that feels like aliveness, okay, or a sense of ease or openness or spaciousness, okay. And then find your own words for what you're feeling in this moment. Okay, where do you feel it in your body? What are the words you would use to describe that? Okay, and then remember those words, because that's your way back in to that felt sense of your inner resource. Okay, so the practice is simply staying with that a little bit longer than you normally would, right? Letting the nervous system register it before moving back into your daily life of scanning and threat mode. Okay, so most of us have become extraordinarily practiced at staying with fear, right? So this is the practice that of becoming equally practiced at staying with this nourishment, with the felt sense of your inner resource, however brief, however small, so that the nervous system begins to remember that it exists too, that it's here too. Okay, it doesn't have to be all pain. It can be nourishment too. Okay, and then throughout the day, okay, so as you get to know this feeling, right, and as you practice it, then throughout your day, you can, ask yourself one simple question: what quality of my inner resource is available right now in these moments that you have where you want to feel that nourishment, that joy, that aliveness? So perhaps a moment of connection with your child, right? You pause, you let it land, and you notice the sensations it brings up in your body. And then you say to yourself, okay, what quality of my inner resource is here right now? Okay, this is, you're developing this inner resource, right? Really developing the felt sense of it. And then perhaps like you see something beautiful in passing, right? You're in the forest and you see a beautiful flower blooming. Stay with it for 10 seconds instead of moving past it. Okay. Or perhaps a sip of coffee that actually tasted good. Feel it. Feel the good feeling, right? And then notice, how do you feel that in your body? What does that good feeling feel like? Stay with it a little bit longer. Okay. So you're not necessarily adding things to your day. You're stopping the habit of bypassing through the good things without letting them register, and instead letting them register and then feeling your inner resource from there. Okay, so this is how the nervous system slowly gets reoriented away from exclusive survival scanning and back towards noticing what is already here, which is the nourishment that exists alongside the stress, not instead of it. It's here all along and it's here to support you. You just need to tune into it. And then when you are having hard moments and you've practiced this, tuning into your inner resource, and you're having a hard moment with your child and you're becoming dysregulated, you can pause and bring forth that inner resource to be here with the activation you're feeling inside. And that inner resource, okay, it's stimulating your ventral vagal system, right? Your calm, relaxed, alert system to come online to help you regulate the activation that's here. Okay. Okay. So I want to explain what changes and what doesn't, right? I want to be honest with you about what this work does and doesn't change. It doesn't change your child necessarily. Okay. It doesn't make the hard moments disappear. There will still be grief. There will still be days that break you open. There will still be uncertainty that you can't resolve and challenges that you feel like you didn't sign up for. Okay. But something else begins to shift. You stop meeting every difficult moment from the floor of your survival system. You begin to have, as I think of it, a little more room, a little more space between what is happening and how it completely takes you over, right? So you find yourself recovering from hard moments a little bit faster. You notice that you're no longer spending the entirety of your child's good moments braced for them to end, right? You can actually enjoy them. You begin to trust yourself a little bit more and your instincts and your judgment, your capacity to handle what comes. And perhaps most meaningfully, you stop postponing your own aliveness. Okay, you begin to understand in your body, not just your mind, that both things can be true. So this is the practice, right? This is nervous system flexibility that we want to develop to be a more regulated human. Your child can struggle and you can have activation inside and you can feel moments of peace too. Okay. And you can feel the strength and courage or ease and well-being of your inner resource come forth in those hard moments to support you. Okay. Life can be hard and you can feel moments of joy too, right? That's nervous system flexibility, to be able to feel not only the challenge, but also to be able to feel all the goodness too. Okay, so that's what you're aiming to for a more regulated nervous system to be at. Okay, so there can be grief and there can be love too, right? In the same afternoon. There can be fear and there can be courage in the same hour or even at the same time. Okay, so these are not contradictions. This is just what a full life actually feels like. So that's a really big reframe to take in, okay? A full life is not about things being great all the time and happy all the time and you being okay and calm all the time. A full life is being able to feel all ends of the spectrum of the emotions and the nervous system activations and the feelings, that you can feel not only the hard and be with it, but at the same time feel the nourishing and the goodness that's there to support you along the way. Okay. And then also feel the aliveness and joy in life in the moments that are there right in front of you. Okay. That can elicit it and bring it out in you. Okay. So I want to come back to a moment that moment that I started with, right? My son's laughing, me standing behind this glass, okay? This metaphorical glass, feeling nothing, wanting so badly to feel his joy. Okay? And I used to think that that moment was a sign of how far gone I was. Okay, what I understand now is that it was a nervous system in survival doing its job, protecting me from feeling too much by not letting me feel much at all. And while that protection had kept me functional through some genuinely unbearable years, for sure, it had cost me access to the very things that make life feel like life. Okay. And that wasn't permanent. So that's the good news. Okay. That was the beginning of something I didn't know that I needed to learn. Right. So today, my son still struggles. Okay. We still have hard days. He's doing much better overall, but there's still challenges that are there. Okay. There is still grief and fear and uncertainty that I live with every day. But now, when he laughs, I can feel the laughter rise within me too. When he overcomes another obstacle, I can feel joy and gratitude for it instead of feeling worried that he may fall into the pits of despair and regress, and then we're going to be back to where we were before. Okay. I can feel that joy and gratitude and let it nourish me. Okay. Or when I feel so exhausted and tired and spent from co regulating all day, I can lie down at night before sleep and just tune into the aliveness that is there underneath and the ease that is here now in the comfort of my bed. Okay, I can recognize in daily moments that I am here too, that I haven't disappeared, that underneath everything we've been through, I can still tune into who I truly am underneath all the stress and feel like the unshakable ground of being, this unshakable ground of well-being and aliveness that I never truly lost. I just lost my way to sense it. And I believe the same is true for you. Okay, not because your circumstances are going to change first, but because what you're looking for was never actually gone, my friends. It's still there, waiting for you to find your way back to it, one small moment at a time. So here's one thing to try this week, okay? So before you move on, I want to offer you a specific practice. Okay, so find a moment in your day, even just a few moments. Arrive in your body, feel your seat in the chair, feel your feet on the floor, slow your breathing down. Okay, soften your eyes and your jaw and your neck and your shoulder, all the areas that we hold tension. Let everything just drop. Okay, and then let a memory surface. Okay, what's a memory? A time where you felt some kind of warmth or ease or joy. Okay, maybe it's as simple as walking in nature or petting your dog or a vacation you were on. Okay, now, and feel it, right? Light up the senses. Notice what you see, hear, feel, smell, and even taste. Okay, and notice how your body feels. Okay, now let go of the thinking and just drop into the sensing and feel the experience in your body. Notice where it lands. Where do you feel it? Okay, and describe the sensations of what you're feeling in your body. And then stay with that felt sense just a little bit longer than you normally would. And that's your inner resource, my friends. See if you can name the qualities that you feel when those sensations are available to you of your inner resource. And remember those qualities because they're your way back in. Okay. And then throughout your week, practice the question, what quality of my inner resource is available right now? Okay. Catch the micro moments, the warmth of the sun, the connection in a small exchange, the brief sense of okayness after a hard thing passes. Don't bypass that. Stay with that brief sense of okayness after the hard thing is over. Okay. And let that nourish your nervous system and let it help your nervous system sense that you're okay and that you're safe. Okay. So you're not necessarily adding joy to your life. You're practicing noticing the joy that is already here. Okay, that survival has just been filtering out, right? Little and often, again and again. And that's how we come home to who we truly are. So if this spoke to you, if this helped you in any way, I invite you to leave a comment, please share with other parents who may need this too. Thank you for being here.